The member for Thornhill.
Oh.
Je m'excuse, mais je perds ma voix un petit peu aujourd'hui. Alors, j'espère que vous pouvez m'entendre un peu. Alors, c'est... merci beaucoup. Je souhaite la bienvenue, premièrement, à tous les délégats qui sont ici, des communautés francophones. Et ils sont ici cet après-midi pour appuyer la deuxième lecture du projet de loi 104 de ma collègue de Nickelbelt, la création de l'Université de l'Ontario français. Nous avons des délégués qui représentent des organismes francophones très différents, mais j'espère qu'ils sont surtout des bons amis et travers toute la province pour parler pas seulement avec nous autres, mais avec toutes les communautés pour voir l'intérêt pour une université francophone ici à Ontario. Un peu des communautés visiteurs qui sont ici, des organismes. On a REFO. REFO, c'est le regroupement étudiant franco-ontarien et l'organisme porte-parole des 22 000 étudiants et étudiantes qui poursuivent des études postsecondaires en francophone ici en Ontario. Et on a aussi AFO, l'Assemblée francophone de l'Ontario. Et FESFO, ça veut dire la Fédération de la jeunesse franco-ontarienne, qui est c'est l'organisme porte-parole des 25 000 jeunes francophones ici en Ontario. Et ils ont une voix très, très forte, comme ma collègue de circonscription d'Ottawa-Orléans avait dit. Alors, bienvenue ici à la législature de l'Ontario. Je vais parler un petit peu aussi en anglais.
I'm also going to speak in English.
That states that the province is losing enormously by not investing in a university system managed by and for francophones. According to the Conference Board of Canada, investment in Quebec and New Brunswick governments in the bilingual population is increasing access to these provinces to foreign markets and leads to additional economic benefits of up to several $billion. More specifically, and I'm quoting from the study, in 2011, exports from Quebec and New Brunswick to French-speaking countries were 2 times more than they would be expected considering their share of overall Canadian exports. The difference is even more marked with imports. Quebec and New Brunswick import from French-speaking countries 2.5 times what they should, given their share of Canadian imports overall. This indicates that the 8 other provinces are doing much less trade with Francophone countries in proportion to their share of Canadian global trade. So obviously, we need to have strong, educated Francophone community members across Canada, not just here in Ontario, who can advocate and travel the world and develop those trade agreements and work for companies that do trade with other companies and to develop and open up those markets. And certainly we see that happening in the provinces with the numbers of students who have more than just high school and elementary school in French. In order to do that sort of international trade work, you have to have the language skills from post-secondary and university level programs. And I'm going to just say that en français. Board du Canada souligne que la province perd énormément en investissant, je m'excuse, dans un système universitaire géré par et pour les francophones. Selon la conférence Board du Canada, l'investissement des gouvernements québécois et New Brunswick dans le bilinguisme de leur population augmente l'accès de ces provinces au marché étranger et mène à des retombées économiques supplémentaires pouvant atteindre plusieurs milliards de dollars. Et je veux parler un petit peu au sujet des francophones ici en Ontario. I will say a few things about francophones here in Ontario And these are just a few facts for everybody to absorb. Among the 13.5 million people living in Ontario, 1.4 million speak French, which is over 10%. 611,500 of them identify as Francophones. 42.2% of Francophones live in Eastern Ontario, 35.7% in Southern Ontario, 22.1% in Northern Ontario, and by 2025, half of all Francophones in Ontario will live in Southern Ontario. 60% of Francophones are born in Ontario, 14% of Francophones are born outside of Canada, mainly in Europe and Africa, and that's also sort of part of the support from this side of the House for a Francophone university. Is there's a lot of talk about increasing Francophone immigration, but one of the keys for immigrants, we see that between the United States and Canada, is if somebody goes to do university in another country, there's a pretty darn good chance that they're going to stay there. They meet somebody, they make friends, they get comfortable, they do some part-time work, and they make the connections in the community, and it's a fantastic way for us to boost Francophone immigration in Ontario, which we all keep talking about and we all keep supporting, but doesn't seem to be quite happening. The target is 5%, Mr. Speaker, to increase Francophone immigration to that 5% of new immigrants would be from Francophone countries and able to, at least work to a reasonable degree and converse to a reasonable degree in French, and to contribute to all the Francophone communities that we have in Ontario. I'm up in York Region in the riding of Thornhill, and we have l'AFRI. L'AFRI is l'Assemblée francophone de la région de York, and Mona Babin was the directrice, and now her friend Valerie is taking over, and Alain Baudouin is the president. And they have fantastic events, Mr. Speaker, and a fantastic summer program for students. And we cannot keep that level growing without the Francophone university students. And in fact, some people have even said to me, well, there's a lot of Francophone universities in Quebec, and that our Francophone students, if they want to go to a Francophone university, well, they could just go to Quebec. Well, that brings us right back to what I said about immigration, that if our Francophone students go to Quebec, well, they might decide to stay in Quebec. Well, that's not what the Francophone communities here want to see. They don't want to see their young people moving outside the province for a university only not to return. So I think that we want to do the actual opposite, Mr. Speaker. We want to have Francophone students from Quebec come to Ontario and maybe settle here. And this is definitely one way to do it. So it's not just about a Francophone university.
De l'université francophone.
Discussion au sujet d'une université. On devrait parler un peu de qualité des programmes dans cette université. Est-ce que c'est quelque chose pour étudier, pour devenir un médecin, un dentiste, ou c'est seulement un programme des séances sociales? J'espère qu'on peut parler un peu, peut-être on peut avoir des programmes pour travailler au gouvernement, parce que c'est ce qu'on voit, Monsieur le Président, on voit qu'on a besoin des personnes ici, des Ontariens et Ontariennes, qui peuvent avoir l'habilité, pas seulement de parler en français, mais d'écrire des choses qu'on a besoin, des press releases.
Press releases.
Mr. Speaker, that, there's a question of, well, what kind of programs and what kind of quality would a Francophone university have? And obviously it would have to start small. But my suggestion would be to consider having programs that would help us, those of us here who are working in government, who, as somebody who's not Francophone, je suis francophile, but we're always looking in all levels of government in this province for people who have the necessary skills, who can write articles, who can do press releases in French, not just merely have a bit of French language skills. And maybe it's something that we can work on to have an internship, a programme de stage, that somehow that there could be some kind of cooperation between those of us who are elected officials and to have students from a Francophone university to spend time in interning in our offices, and we could be part of that program and part of that solution, because we see that in the medical professions, that you don't just go to university and get the degree, that some of the greatest programs have the best internships. Obviously, doctors have to practice in hospitals and clinics. As an optometrist, I had to work in a clinic for 2 years, and we also see the co-op programs that are so successful. So that's sort of my personal opinion, is that I would really like to see some type of work-school program that would help us for purely selfish reasons, that we all are often looking for staff, not just in our offices, but in the ministries and in so many areas in the government, that if we want to continue to be a true shining light of Francophone communities in Canada, not just, oh yeah, Ontario also has Francophone communities. So I'm just going to end by saying that on that level, my nephew Edin,
Que mon neveu Adam,
le collège français ici à Toronto, dans le niveau 11, et il venait souvent pour m'aider à translate mes notes en français.
it's into French.
To a mother who grew up like I did in an English suburb in Montreal, but she went to French University in Quebec City. Then she did at the Sorbonne in Paris, a Master of Education, and she made a big effort to speak to her little baby son in French. And he went on to do French-only school, so not French immersion, but French-only school. And I have to say now, when he speaks English, he sometimes has a French accent, Mr. Speaker. So merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much to Adam for helping me.
And merci beaucoup tous les étudiants.
Thank you to all students who are here.